What's up, distinguished boys and girls? This video is made specifically for D.H.S students because I've seen there is lack in YouTube videos provided for them in English language. So here I am providing it. I'm working on a PDF specifically for you guys. I'm writing everything with my hands. It's taken a lot of time. And I will also try to provide the old versions of the questions, and will try to translate them to English. As soon as I finish it, I will provide it down below. So before we start, I wanna tell you, let's talk. How do you approach your exam? How do you study for biology? Now, biology is like any other science field where we prioritize comprehension over memorization. I want you to comprehend, understand before you try to memorize anything. But I'd be sounding delusional if I said this is enough, because it's not. Because this exam really assesses your ability to memorize more than to actually comprehend. We rarely see questions where it depends on your comprehension. So what I'm gonna try to do in those videos, we're gonna review everything together, and I will emphasize on how do you expect questions. For example, every line you read, how do you convert it to a question, and how do you expect it in an exam? This book is the best that I can get. It's very blurry. I can barely read through it. If you can provide me with any better copy, please send it to me. I would really appreciate it. So, to explain the concept of the cell before we actually start, a friend of mine actually explained it to me, and he told me that the cell, you can think about it as the building block, just like a house, for example. Houses are made up of building blocks, rocks, etc. We need a lot of things. Exactly with the organisms, the living organisms are made up of building blocks called the cell, and it is what makes them distinguished from non-living things. Basically, when we describe non-living things, we refer to them as atoms, matter, but we don't use the word cell. A cell is only used for living organisms, living things. But that does not necessarily mean that the cells are not made up of atoms and matter. They are made up of atoms and matter, but it's not the other way around. Okay, so here is telling you the cell is considered as the basic unit of all organisms. What you can expect from this is a blank question, where they tell you the basic unit as a blank question here. Generally, we have a prokaryotic cell and eukaryotic cell. What is the difference between them? Eukaryotic means a true nucleus. Eu means true, and karyotic refers to the nucleus. It's a prefix. And the prokaryotic means a false nucleus. Eukaryotic basically has a true nucleus with a nuclear membrane, but the prokaryotic cells do not have a nucleus. Instead, they have their genetic material in the cytoplasm in an area we call the nucleoid, or the nuclear zone, which is also mentioned in this book. One more feature is that prokaryotic cells do not have membrane-bound organelles like the mitochondria or the Golgi apparatus, but they do have ribosomes, which are not membrane-bound organelles. Remember that ribosomes are present in both eukaryotic and prokaryotic. Here, you're just gonna have the brief history of the discovery of the cell. I'm not gonna emphasize on it, you will just read it because there's not much to talk about. But I would say that you have to memorize the name of the scientist and what did they discover and the years. I know this sounds hard to believe, but it's possible to get a question about the years because every year, at least at any subject, they give a weird question that can make students go crazy. They go out of the rooms crying, etc. And this topic is no exception. So if you pay a tutor $900 or $1,000, they will just end up telling you the same thing. They will just tell you to memorize the years. So just take the word from me instead. Here you can get another blank question. Is the branch of science that study the cell is called cytology. The cell theory. This is very important where you're going to get a question tell you mention the principles of the cell theory, and those are the three principles that you have to mention. Another possible question you can get is the Matthias Schleiden and Theodor Schwann being blank questions. And the cell theory principles are those three. All organisms are made of cells. Cells. Cells are the basic structural and functional units of all organisms. And the cell is produced from another cells by means of cell division. So this is how the cells replicate, the process called cell division. We're going to discuss this in detail at the end of this chapter. Cell size, here there's also not much to talk about because I gave like some questions in my PDF here. For example, the blanks question, like frog egg is 1 millimeters and the human egg is 100 micrometers. This can be a blank question here. And the other thing that I want to emphasize on is the microscopy. We have two types of microscopy, electron and light microscopy. A possible question is that they're going to ask you the justify or explain question. Explain or justify why cannot we see the viruses using the light microscopy. The answer being is because they are very small and we need other device that has bigger magnification like the electron microscopy. So what you can take from here is that the electron microscopy having bigger magnification than light microscopy. It's possible to ask you about this fact. I don't want to make this video long. It's just my first video. I want to make it like introducing. So let's see if things work out. So I'll probably just stop after this. It's just an introducing video because my PDF is not ready yet. So the prokaryotic cell, I'm just going to discuss this real quick. We talked about it already. We said that it is primitive in shape, basically. It's archaic, less developed than the eukaryotic cell, and it's smaller in size. This is important where you can get the question about the comparison between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. So if they tell you compare this and that, we already talked about a lot of points. Smaller in size, less developed, and does not have a nucleus or membrane-bound organelles. And we said that they have their genetic material in an area called nucleoid or nuclear zone, but not a true nucleus. And prokaryotic cells have, or cytoplasm has no membrane organelles, yes. It has ribosomes, which build proteins. Here, they just told you the function of the protein, of the ribosomes. So if they tell you what is the function of the ribosomes, they ask this in previous questions. A lot of questions that they just ask about the function of ribosomes, and the answer is just building proteins. One thing I want to clarify is the origin of the ribosomes are actually from the nucleolus. They are not from the nucleus. Do not get those two confused. And they build proteins. If they ask you about the location of the ribosomes, you're just going to say that it's found in both prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells, usually at the surface of the rough endoplasmic reticulum. They want to see this. They want to see the word rough endoplasmic reticulum. This is why the rough endoplasmic reticulum is called rough, and why it looks granular. Prokaryotic cells is represented by blue-green algae, bacteria, and mycoplasma, which all belong to the kingdom Monera. Here, the question you can get is that give an example for each of the following, and they will tell you a prokaryotic cell, and you will just write down bacteria. Mycoplasma is just a type of bacteria that causes tuberculosis. I don't know why are they mentioning it as if it was a separate thing from bacteria. Mycoplasma is just another type of bacteria. Each bacterial cell represents a prokaryotic organism, meaning that prokaryotic cells are unicellular. Meanwhile, the eukaryotic cells can either be unicellular or multicellular. Humans, for example, are multicellular. They are made up of trillions of cells to make up a single organism. But prokaryotic cells means that one cell equals one organism. I mentioned all of that in my PDF. I'll make sure to provide it as soon as I can. The prokaryotic cells are bounded or surrounded by a cell wall. Remember that the cell wall is also present in plant cells, but they are not present in animal cells. And also remember that animal cells are referring to the human cells are called animal cells as well. So if you see animal cells, it does not necessarily mean animals only. It also includes the humans because we share the same cell. The chemical composition, this is very important because there is a question where they tell you to give the chemical composition for each of the following, and they will tell you the cell wall of the prokaryotic cells, or the bacteria. And the answer is just proteins, lipids, and polysaccharides. Polysaccharides means sugar, saccharides means sugar, and poly means a lot, or many, or multi. So it means just a long chain of sugar. Of course, this cell wall surrounds the plasma membrane, which is a semi-fluid membrane, which contains the nucleoid. There are also some structures that are present here called the flagella and pili. Flagella being this structure, the singular form is called flagellum. It helps the cell to move. And the fimbriae, or the pili, are like hair-like structures that help the bacteria to attach to the host tissues during infections. Also, they play a big role in reproduction, where they form something called the sex pili. And we will discuss this in the reproduction chapter. But just know this for now. This is the cytoplasm, as we can see here, and this is the nucleoid, the genetic material which contains the DNA, but with no a distinct nucleus. We don't have a nucleus here. One more thing to mention, that the flagella are actually also present in eukaryotic cells. For example, in sperm cells, we also have flagella. So it's not just in prokaryotic. If you write that down, it's wrong. I think that's it for now. I really don't want to make my first video long. If you like it, if you want me to keep going, please subscribe to my channel and share it with your friends. And thanks for watching.